There we go.
Can I get a roll call, Beth?
Bunnell, Dorfman,
Here.
Kim,
Here.
Leffler,
Here.
Lemke,
Here.
Murray,
Here.
Novak,
Here.
Pirzani, and guess we have Joanna.
Joanna Bertucci.
Joanna.
And for CCS, we have Rebecca Malinowski, Deborah Wishmeyer, and Beth Stormbrenner.
Thank you. Are there any additions to the agenda? All right, hearing none, we'll move to public comment. No public here to comment? Wouldn't that be funny if there was somebody? Does that ever happen? No. Okay, and then can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the June 18th meeting?
I so move.
Okay,
Yeah.
is there any discussion? Any corrections? All right, all in favor, or do we need a roll call? Do we get a second?
I second
We
it.
need a second.
Okay. Who did? I'm
Sarah.
sorry. Sarah. Okay.
Sarah, thank you. I'll do roll. Dorfman,
Here.
Kim,
Yes.
Leffler,
Yes.
Lemke,
Abstain.
Murray,
Yes.
Novak.
Yes.
I said
Thank
here,
you.
I mean, yes. I meant yes.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, so next item is the new member investment, and we're going to have, there's going to be some action on this. Rebecca, do you want to walk us through this item?
Yes, please. So I included in your packet a document with some background because we do have some new members on the committee, and this is a conversation we started last year. So essentially, we referred to a new member billing policy in our bylaws, which has not existed. So we need to make it exist. And a component of that policy that we've been back and forth on is the new member investment. So the committee last year, we talked about setting a floor or a cap, or a floor and a cap on that investment amount. And the committee said, let's not do that. Let's just look at the previous 5 years of investments that our members have made and kind of try to add an equity component of how big the library is into that amount. And then after some additional discussion, the committee said, why are we even doing this at all? Should we just get rid of it? And there was some discussion around that, about just removing the investment entirely, or you know, having the option to maintain it but not require it. And so then we went to executive committee to get a little bit of an additional feedback on that. And executive committee was open to not always charging it, but wanted to maintain the ability to charge it. After that, I redrafted a policy, which I included in your packet, and I apologize that the red lines did not redline. I really struggle with those. It's to write it down, I guess. So what I'm recommending is a policy that calls for governing board to approve an investment amount as part of the budgeting process. So that would give us some standardization. So I'm not just making it up when a new member approaches us, but that gives governing board the opportunity to say, with guidance from budget and finance, you know, our fund is in a really healthy place. We don't really need anything right now. Or, you know, we've been actively saving for these projects we have on the horizon. So we think a new member coming in should contribute to that. a component I've included in the policy is that a quote would be good for 18 months. Because if we look at the last couple of libraries that we talked to, from the time they got their formal quote to the time their membership was approved was 13 months. Beth, there is an email that, okay, that's on it. Thank you. So I don't want to make a quote good for 12 months. And if we're like just missing that window, but I also don't want to requote someone the month before we're going to approve their membership. So I feel like 18 months, we should be able to forecast with budget and finance what we're looking for at that stage, whether we need an investment or not, and what that amount should be. So this would apply moving forward. So Vernon has already been quoted an investment amount, and their board has already approved it, and we're looking to approve their membership in November. So this would not change anything for Vernon. But for example, we're talking with Wakanda, and it sounds like they're a few years out from doing anything. So maybe this would apply to them in the future. So this background I just discussed with you. And then the committee asked that we look at potential financial impact, like what would things look like if we didn't require the investment? And essentially things would not look very different at all. So when we look at our membership over the past several years, the amount that our members save with the addition of a new member outweighs if we made our members pay to like make up that investment amount. But we don't need to make our members pay to make up that investment amount because our fund balance would have been just fine without it. Or like, again, maybe we would have had a very small amount if we needed to be at our current fund balance. But our development fund guidelines have a fair amount of wiggle room in them of how much we want in our development fund. So without those new member investments, we'd be like just below our bottom threshold of our guideline, which again is just a guideline. But it truly doesn't seem like it would have a negative impact on our existing membership if we didn't actively, we're sort of as a standard bill potential new members that investment fee. I've included a link to a spreadsheet with some more information on kind of big buckets of spending in development over the past several years, so you could look at it if you wanted to. But essentially, almost all of the development fund income that we get is from being under budget in our regular operating account. There was a planned investment of like $400,000 several years ago in preparation for the migration. But other than that, we've really just been doing whatever we've been under budget has been transferred rather than, billing specifically for that account. We also at this stage, interest rates are really robust, which we can't always count on, but for now, it's a delight. And CCS is collecting non-CCS member library fees on behalf of our libraries. So that's included in this like little slice of green other income. And that's only been a year and a half of this data. So that pie piece would be a tiny bit bigger moving forward. But so the proposal on the table is, and it doesn't include the LSAP support grant because it was just a pass through. The proposal on the table is there are edits in this that we talked about last year that we didn't make additional changes to. This section is the section with the new revisions. So that is what I have to present to you, and I'm happy to take feedback or questions. Turn it back over to Lindsay.
Thank you, Rebecca. Are there any questions or thoughts on what Rebecca presented? Sarah?
I have a thought. This is like, the kind of thing where you look at something a lot of times and it's like, yeah, that makes sense. And then one day something is like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, so I'm gonna throw it out there, and if you throw it away, that's fine. On page 3 of the red line version, so I'm sure it's in the one that you have there if you scroll up a little bit under implementation and training, but the red line version is fine. So one more towards the bottom. Okay, that's good. So it says, CCF staff and new member library staff will work together to develop an appropriate training program, the cost of which shall be included in new member startup costs. And then the two costs that we show under one-time startup costs are project fees, which my understanding is, so it's the next page now, page 4. If we go down to page 4.
Mhm.
So project fees, which goes to vendor fees, migration service fees, licenses, whatnot. So that doesn't necessarily go to CCS, right? That just goes to,
It does. So.
but like that's
um,
for, but we're then paying like, innovative for that stuff. Right or no?
We. Both. So, the new members. Oh. So if you go right above that,
Mhm.
under membership costs during the implementation period will be calculated based on cost recovery for CCS staff time during the implementation period. So we charge new members membership fees that at this point are about a third of what their full fee would be if they were live.
Mhm.
And that fee includes, we track our time. And so then we estimate moving forward based on historical time. That includes general overhead for CCS, as well as the support we provide during training, profiling, mapping, and all the stages of the project. So that includes the training costs.
Okay, because I guess I was looking at when it says new member startup costs, and then that one is called membership costs, but right below it is one-time startup costs. So I was looking for the cost of training in the startup costs, but really it's in the membership costs.
Yes.
Okay, so then I would suggest either changing that wording a little bit to say, new membership costs. Or putting the training costs into the one-time startup costs. I guess I was just thinking, I don't love the idea that the investment is such a wild card, right? That like in some years it's going to be a lot, in some years it's not going to be a lot, in some years it has been a lot. I don't know that it'll be a lot again, but it seems like such a wild card based on, kind of what CCS is doing in this snapshot of time, where an investment to me feels like a long-term thing. So I guess kind of what I was thinking when I read the new member startup costs with training, I was wondering if under the one-time startup costs, training could be there. So like project fees and then training based on, the things that you said, number of, items in the collection or number of records, number of staff that need to be trained, whatnot. And then maybe there's a one-time training fee that goes for implementation that would be under one-time startup costs. Does you follow that?
I do.
I also,
Go ahead.
no, I wanted to contribute to what Sarah said, but if you have something to follow up, I'll wait.
No, hit me with it, Tiffany.
Well, just being brand new and this to this committee and first time seeing this, I'm concerned about the consistency also. Like if we need an investment fund, which then we can grow and invest and make money on that, can we? Are we allowed to do that in CCS? Then why not continue to build it? Because we don't know what we're going to want to pursue for the catalog or any other features or other trainings or other things we might want to do as a consortium. When I was on the Rails board and some new members were coming in, everybody ended up paying that implementation or that investment fee. and there was a formula, which I think is referred to. So if that's a formula based on what your library can pay, then there's that consistency there. But I don't know if we should say may pay or whatever's the going rate at the moment. Shouldn't there, if we're going to rely on a formula, I think that helps us build our bank account. And why shouldn't we all do that?
I am just pulling up a couple of other documents. It is going slowly.
I guess I was just thinking if we, instead of it being an investment fee, instead if it's a, you know, implementation and training fee, then we can put it in investment if we want to. We can do whatever we want with that money. But then it's just a more consistent, a called out cost that is more consistent.
What? I unpause my screen share. Oh boy. Resume. There's a resume button. Okay. So I'm going to start with Tiffany's comment about like what's going on with the development fund. Again, we have a mix of folks on this committee of people who were here for last year's discussion and this year's. So we have our fiscal accountability policy, which calls for the Budget and Finance Committee to annually review and update a list of potential uses of the development fund. And the point of this list is to justify what balance we're carrying in our development fund. Because, I mean, theoretically, I could just bill you guys a bunch of money and then just like CCS is keeping libraries' monies and taxpayer monies and investing it for no reason. So every year we review this list and we assess an estimated dollar amount. These are not things for sure that we know we're going to do. These are things that we are thinking about doing or could potentially do. So we assign values to it and come up with a total amount. And then our goal per our fiscal accountability policy, which are guidelines, it's not a requirement, is that we maintain a balance of between 75 and 150% of the total estimated cost of all these items in our development fund. So what has happened in recent years is that our development fund balance was actually too high and exceeding our potential costs. So we were giving that money back to our members. So as we were billing incoming members for a development fee, we were also giving development fund money back to our members. So we also, Tiffany and Waukegan were billed under our old policy. They were billed like $22,000. This is a typo. Sorry about that. Fix that. They were billed almost $23,000 for the investment fund. Pam and Morton Grove were billed like $35,000. And that policy looked at the previous 5 years of spending for all CCS, or the previous 5 years of investment for all CCS members, and then just kind of averaged it. So the point of that was that, you know, if CCS had literally just migrated and spent $500,000 on a migration, a library couldn't wait until after the migration and then kind of come in and reap the benefits of that. Or if we bought a $100,000 server, a library couldn't come in and be like, haha, now I get this cool server that I didn't pay for. But we don't buy big servers anymore because we're mostly in a cloud-based environment and moving more in that direction. So those types of big expenditures are more limited. And in terms of like, are we going to do a big migration? Are we going to do something else? That is kind of covered in that development fund balance and what we want to bring in. So that kind of led to these discussions. So that's how much Waukegan and Morton Grove were billed. Applying that same formula. Pardon?
Mount Prospect?
Well, yeah, but Morton Grove was billed like $35,000 a few years back.
Oh, okay.
Mount Prospect was billed the same amount as Waukegan.
Ah.
So those are reference points. And then because of all the rebating we've been doing and that we hadn't had a big intentional investment in the development fund, Vernon is quoted $2,500 for the investment fund. So to Sarah's point, it is a real wild card. So that brought up the question, should we have a floor? Should we have a ceiling? Like, should we have a minimum that all libraries will be charged at least $10,000 or something? And so the committee talked about that and they were like, yeah, we should do that. And then they talked about it some more. And they were like, that feels really arbitrary too. Do we even need the money? Is the benefit of having a new member like bringing more savings to all of our libraries than we're even getting from this investment fund? So we went back and forth. We had a policy, we rewrote the policy. So now we're on governing board decides annually what it should be. So that's a little bit more background. And then to Sarah's question about like, what's up with these costs? This is what a quote to a new member looks like. So we have, these would be what I would consider like the one-time, like all of these are one-time costs, as you can see from this bold text. But we have like our vendor costs here up at the top. And then our CCS implementation fees are broken out into these various project phases based on CCS staff time. So we're billing the CCS implementation fees, we bill quarterly, essentially. We've kind of just built it into the membership billing, whereas the innovative services and user licenses, we bill, we pass along those invoices when we get them from Innovative. And so essentially all of those fees are paid at the end of the project. Like we haven't billed them yet for Waukegan because we haven't gotten the invoices yet from Innovative.
So those
So that
first
is
two,
why,
sorry, innovative services and user licenses, those are the project fees.
Yeah.
That are, okay.
Yeah, and so we have like for the CCS migration, the big one, obviously we had Innovative do the training, and Innovative will do the training for us, but it is much more costly than CCS doing the training. So if Innovative did do the training, it would be considered a vendor fee and up here, and we'd like drastically reduce this amount if for some reason CCS wasn't going to do the training, or if Innovative did part of the training, that invoice would be passed along to the new members.
Rebecca, that all makes sense. I guess my question is, if we don't have the investment fee as such, one, if we know members, we already know going out at least a year or two, right? Who new members are going to be. If the board is setting whatever the fee for the year is, they kind of have us, I don't know, can they make a more accurate projection in some way of what's needed versus just saying an arbitrary $10,000 type of thing? And then is the idea then, you know, the development fund kind of remains static. If it has several hundred, it seems very healthy. It has several $100,000 in it for if then again, if we're planning, oh, it's going to happen the next 3 years, then is it basically that just members are getting like a special assessment, like you lived in a condo? Okay, we're doing this. Everybody's got to pay $10,000. Or the development fee is going to do X and everybody else has to contribute X. Is that where we'd be headed then? I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, so the idea is, let's say, so we're doing a Polaris satisfaction survey right now. So let's say that survey comes back and it's like, big thumbs down. We're all really mad about Polaris and we're ready for open source and we're going to make some big changes. We know that's going to cost money. So we would, you know, set a plan, like a multi-year target for when that would happen. And then we would incorporate that into our annual billing. So we would increase library billings to cover what we want to invest in development. And so as the Budget and Finance Committee is reviewing those plans, they would say, and then new member, like prospective members, we're going to, you know, implement the investment fee so it is in line with what our members are saving for and have been saving for this big project. So it's rather than default to like, yeah, give us a chunk of money because we all put money in. It's are we planning to spend this money? Are we planning to grow this money? Is this an appropriate time to be collecting it? So there is some luck of the draw involved for sure.
Yeah.
I
think it's fair in a lot of ways, just because you and the treasurer and the budget committee have eyeballs on that. I don't want the policy to hamstring
right.
strong fiscal decisions and forward thinking and projections. So I do think we have to be careful what we say so in the policy.
There any other thoughts or comments?
I would just say, it would feel clearer to me, and I'm putting the emphasis on clear to me. If in the letter that you showed, I don't know if you still have that up. So the CCS implementation fees, those to me, I understand those to be one-time fees, right?
They're what we charge between when a library is approved for membership and when they're live on the database. So they're not charged full membership costs until they're circulating, but they are a voting member in between. Right. So it's their membership fees, but at an implementation rate.
Okay. So I guess where it says membership costs during the implementation period will be calculated based on cost recovered for CCS staff time during the implementation period. I guess that makes sense. I was thinking it just from looking at this list of costs and being listed as one-time costs, to me, those implementation fees should be under the one-time startup costs category. And then the full membership fee shall be assessed beginning the first month after a library is circulating on the shared database, should be the thing listed under membership costs. You just scroll past it.
Well, membership costs sometimes. I mean, so you want to take this?
That to me seems like it fits better under one-time startup costs because it's not an ongoing thing, whereas the membership cost is an ongoing thing.
And just bump it down here. So it would say like implementation fees, project fees, investment, or it would be under project fees.
I would think it would be under implementation fees. That would be its own category under implementation fees. And then, we can, I guess the decision is whether or not then to require an investment. I just wish there was a way to flatten that a little bit and standardize it a little bit more than, what's happening in the moment. So I didn't know if any part of the one-time costs could be put into investment if it's, I don't know on the list of costs that you had for Tiffany, I don't know what of those, where does that money go? Is that money, our salary is already covered for training, and so then whatever you collect from training is kind of like supplemental and extra, because then that to me seems like it would go into investment.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to like this answer, Sarah. The answer is it depends.
Sure. No, that's fine.
No, so I mean, truly it depends on when the library approaches and how the timing works out with the budgeting process. Okay. Often it ends up in the investment account because we've already sent out member library billings, and then it's like, okay, now we're going to start billing you for this additional amount, but we hadn't built it into the budget. So our operating costs are all covered for the year, and that extra goes into development, or again, most likely it goes into development just based on what the accountant recommends with our end of year balances. But yeah, it's extra. Depending on when the membership is approved and the budget is approved, etc., some part of that might be built into membership billings, in which case libraries are just getting the savings sooner. Like it's coming off of your bills then, and you know, like we're dividing our total operating costs by that bigger number sooner, or
Sure.
a portion. bigger
So
number
I
sooner.
guess for me then, charging an investment fee, because the number can be so volatile, I don't know that I would want to charge one. I would maybe just say use those training and whatever one-time fees that are not needed in the budget, put those in development, and that would be at the discretion of CCS and the budget committee. But I
So
mean, I don't necessarily feel super strongly any particular way. I just, now I'm looking at this with fresh eyes when I've got 7,000 things going through my brain as opposed to 2,000. And so, everything's getting swirled up from the bottom.
Yeah, I would be hesitant to plan that those training, that cost recovery would always be extra.
No, I don't think that it would. That's why I'm saying it would be at the discretion of CCS. If it would
Yeah.
be extra, put it in the development fund. If it wouldn't be extra, then use it how you would use it.
Yes, and that is what happens. At the end of the year, extra operating funds get moved to development.
Mhm. Okay, I don't know. I don't know that I moved the conversation forward at all. But it was just, those are the things that were popping up in my brain while I was reading the different categories of costs and trying to figure out how to make investment feel more fairly calculated, I guess. I mean, not that it's unfair, but it's so different.
Yeah,
But it's,
and I'm comfortable with the note to move membership costs to like an implementation fees section under one-time product startup costs. Like, I think that is reasonable and it goes in the quote that way. So I think that makes sense.
And Rebecca, but the difference with the investment fees is it's different because it's being looked at different times, right? Because our needs
Mhm.
change.
Yeah.
Over time.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there is a way to like,
So
even that
essentially
out.
what this policy is proposing and how it's different than the old policy or practice is that the old system looked historically and said, this is what our libraries have done for the past several years. So now you need to do it too. And this policy is looking forward and saying, here's what we're planning to do. And we need everyone to pitch in to do it. And that includes a new member. Whereas, here's what we're planning to do, and we're already set. We'd just be happy for you to join us and take on, regular membership costs moving forward. So it could be different year to year, but yeah, to Lindsay's point, that's because our needs change year to year, but it's that direction. Are we looking back at what we've done and making it like everyone's got to pay in what I paid in, or is it looking forward and saying we're all going to pitch in as we need to based on future needs?
I appreciate that explanation. I don't think it's going to flatten things, but it does help to look at it from those two perspectives. I'm
So
satisfied.
would anybody like to move to approve the policy are we recommending it then for approval to the executive committee, Rebecca? Okay. Would anybody like to move to recommend moving this policy forward as amended to the executive committee?
So moved.
We got a second?
I'll second,
Maybe.
Susan.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Oh, hi, Susan.
All right.
No, you-
So Beth, can we get that roll call?
Bonell, Dorfman,
Yes. Did you hear me?
Sorry.
Yes.
sorry, thank you. Kim,
Yes.
Leffler,
Yes.
Lemke,
Yes.
Murray,
Yes.
Novak,
Yes.
Frizani.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda is next steps.
I would just take this opportunity to say CCS staff are looking into 3 additional policies, which are a potential tuition reimbursement policy, an AI, both CCS and member library staff use policy as it relates to ILS data, and relooking at our treasurer's bond for lots of reasons. If there are any other, any member of this committee or truly any member of governing board can request a review of any policy or section of the bylaws. So if there's anything else you want looked at, please let me or Lindsay know so we can add it to a future agenda. But I don't have a date in mind for our next meeting yet, because we have not drafted those policies.
Sounds good. All good policies to be thinking about. Any other additions? Anybody want Rebecca to be thinking about? Is there anything else that her and the team should be thinking about in regards to policies? No? All right. Thank you, Rebecca, for all the work on this. I know you and the team put a lot of thought into it, so thank you. Anything else, everybody? No?
Just thank you for entertaining my query.
I will always entertain your queries, Sarah.
All right, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting? Or do we need a motion? I always
I
forget.
think you can declare.
Okay, I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 10:38. Thank you for your time, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
day.